Again, for the mountains of Scotland, well, there could be quite a bit of snow. So still cold across the north, but a much milder day for the southwest. Temperatures here comfortably into double figures. And it stays quite wet across the north of the UK, particularly parts of Scotland with some further rain and quite persistent hill snow for mountains north of the central belt, something just to bear in mind there. Elsewhere, though, some dry, clearer weather coming through later in the evening. And it's a much more unsettled picture as we move through the Christmas period, with rain for most of us, potentially a bit of snow in the north where it stays cold, but on the whole milder further south. Take care.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's time to debate the big issues of the day with me, Liam Halligan, and Inaya Falarin Iman. 2021's been a year like no other, from Marcus Rashford's food drive to Storm Arwen, battering parts of the UK, and of course, the continued disruption of COVID.
Today we'll take a look at all of the past year and shine a light on the brilliant communities across the UK, who are the people making their mark where they live. But first, it's the news.
Thanks, Anaya. I'm Rosie Wright. Let's get you up to date at 2 o'clock. The First Minister of Wales has announced that the country will move to COVID alert level 2 from Boxing Day. The measures include 2 metre social distancing in public and places of work. The rule of 6 applies in pubs, restaurants, cinemas and theatres. Face coverings will be required in hospitality settings at all times, apart from when you're seated. There's also going to be a limit on the number of people attending large events, 30 people indoors and 50 people outside.
Nobody wanted to see the return to alert levels and to the protections that I've announced today. But we are now entering a really serious phase of the pandemic. Wales will reopen after Christmas, but in order to do so safely, we have to do everything we can to go on protecting ourselves and taking care of others.
In England, the self-isolation period for fully vaccinated people who test positive for COVID-19 has been cut down from 10 days now to 7. Those infected with the virus must produce a negative lateral flow result first, though, on day 6 and day 7 of the isolation period. The Health Secretary says it will help thousands of people enjoy Christmas now with their families. It comes as the Prime Minister says Christmas in England will go ahead as planned, but the new measures could be brought in after. The Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, John Ashworth, told GB News, though, that businesses need clarity.
Everybody is anticipating that something will happen after Christmas. Indeed, that's the briefing from the government sources to newspapers. Briefings to newspapers isn't good enough. I think we just need some clarity about what the financial package will be and what the restrictions are likely to look like post-Christmas in the run-up to New Year's Eve. We can't leave people in limbo.
The UK's chief medical officers have praised NHS staff for their tireless work during the pandemic. They're warning, though, of tough winter months ahead. They're urging staff to prepare for multiple challenges as hospital admissions with the Omicron variant are rising rapidly. The chief executive of King's College Hospital in London's also concerned at the number of COVID-related staff shortages.
We were at around about 100 or so COVID-related staff absences about 10, 11 days ago, and that figure is now over 600. So staff are coping, partly because they know they have to cope. They're professionals, they're clinical professionals, they're outstanding people, and they're doing what they have been trained to do. But it's difficult.
The UK economy has grown at a much slower pace than first thought between July and September. The Office for National Statistics said the economy expanded by 1.1% in the third quarter of this year, compared with an initial estimate of 1.3%. Experts expect the economy to further contract in December as new restrictions could be introduced. Manchester City footballer Benjamin Mendy has been accused of another count of rape. The charge relates to a new complainant and is alleged to have taken place in July of this year. The 27-year-old Frenchman appeared at Chester Crown Court this morning. He's been in custody since August. He's now accused of 7 counts of rape relating to 4 women. Adverts by the football club Arsenal that promote the sale of fan tokens, they've been banned for taking advantage of consumers' inexperience with crypto assets. The token scheme would allow fans the chance to vote in decisions made at the club. The ads warned that consumers could lose some money and seek financial advice. But the Advertising Standards Authority found that Arsenal trivialised investment in crypto assets. The club said it would seek an independent review. A government minister in Madagascar has said he swam for 12 hours after his helicopter crashed at sea during a rescue mission. Sergei Gele, who leads the National Gendarmerie, was with a team searching the northeast coast of the country after a cargo ship illegally carrying 138 passengers sank. At least 64 people have died and 24 people are missing. 50 people were found. You're right up to date. I'll bring you the latest headlines in half an hour.
Coming up this hour, we'll be debating the issue of Christmas.
We're asking, despite reassurances in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, there'll be no new restrictions before the big day. Are your plans still going ahead as normal?
And we'll take a look back at some of the big news stories of 2021 and the impact they've had on communities across the UK. We'll ask, who are the people making a mark where they live?
But it's not just our guests we want to hear from. Join the conversation and the debate to get your view. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews.
Now let's start with one of the biggest stories of the year. Euro 2020, which of course took place in 2021, might have been heartbreaking for England fans after the team lost out in the final, but their success in the tournament did wonders for the grassroots game.
Yes, young players flocked in their droves to local clubs to replicate the exploits of stars like Harry Kane and Raheem Sterling. Joining us now to talk about this is Mark Culverhouse. He's the secretary of the North East Hants Football League in Hampshire. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, what do you make of that remarkable event that happened and what's kind of transpired since then?
It's fantastic for grassroots football. It really has exploded, especially at the lower age groups, from under 7s through to the under 12s. We've seen increasing teams across clubs fourfold. You know, players wanting to basically replicate their heroes: Harry Kane, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish. You know, we've had some of the lads turn up with the Foden haircut after the games. So it's been fantastic and great news for the sport itself across the country.
During lockdown, of course, Mark, often sports is curtailed, often schools aren't open and kids miss out on fixtures and so on. As somebody who's worked in grassroots football for a long time, How important is sport, competitive sport, to the development of boys and girls in your experience?
Oh, it's utmost importance to kids to learn competitiveness, to be able to get out and play football, and not just football, but any other sport as well, rugby, anything like that, really. Just get out in the fresh air, run around, enjoy themselves. Up to the North East Hants, we run a thing called Their Game Weekend, where the kids are just allowed to do what they want on the pitch, not be coached, learn it themselves, learn the game themselves, communicate themselves, and take it forward and learn from those experiences on the pitch.
And Mark, what got you into sport in the first place? Is it something that you've just been into since you were a young lad? What got you into it?
Yeah, I've always played football from the age of 10. The best news to me was my 5-year-old son come up to me and said, "Dad, I want to be a footballer." So I went back to my local club, asked if they had any teams, and I got roped into being the actual manager of the team. And that was 15 years ago now, and I've still got the core of that team. And we've now got under-19s and under-20s in our first season of men's football. That team has been going from a long time with a lot of young friends, and that's the main thing behind it. Is it's friends playing football, getting together and having fun on the pitch.
And we see a lot more women's football on the television these days, Mark. Are you seeing that at the grassroots level as well? Young girls and women playing more football?
Yes, that's really exploding, the ladies' football. It's fantastic. The girls going to the Wildcat centres around the area that you can go to through Surrey FA or Hampshire FA, speak to them about the Wildcat centres and go and get football and join in and playing football. The girls' side of it is fantastic. I've even applied myself to be a volunteer next year at the Women's Euros, which are being held down in Southampton and across the local area.
And also, do you think footballers are sometimes misunderstood? I mean, you know, a few decades ago, there were so many scandals and controversies, but now we see this generation, a very refined, you know, Marcus Rashford doing lots of positive things for young kids and much more role models are their images. I mean, what do you think? Do you think their perception has improved?
It has, yes. A lot of the kids do look up to Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling, to basically be like them, and Harry. You know, those are role models, and they talk about them. The biggest role model, I think, I know he's not English, is Cristiano Ronaldo. The amount of times you see these lads trying to do the step overs, and when they score, jumping and doing the Ronaldo celebration is fantastic, really.
Mark, finally, is England ever going to win a tournament, an international tournament in our lifetimes? We came so close at Euro 2021, or 2020 as we must call it.
I'm not sure if they'll do the World Cup in our time. There's some fantastic teams out there still. Euros, I think we could. It showed this year with it, and how much they've improved and how much the team themselves and what Gareth Southgate's put into that team on just mind-wise and the mentality of the players and how they go forward now. I think we might have a little bit of wait for the World Cup.
Well, Mark Culverhouse, you're the Secretary of North East Hants Football League down there in Hampshire. Thanks for all the work that you've done in the community throughout the last year. Cheers.
No, absolutely. Well, next, a more recent development that's made the headlines across the UK. Storm Arwen was one of the worst weather events in the UK over the last decade, with electricity poles snapped and wires down across large parts of the country.
The northeast of England, the Wye Valley, the Lake District, Aberdeenshire, Perthshire, all areas across the UK that were badly hit by Storm Arwen. Homes in Northumberland spent days without power.
Bruce Jobson is an agricultural journalist and covered the story. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us. How badly affected was the area?
Well, to be fair, you know, GBNews has covered it recently with Rachel, but it was beyond recognition. The whole of the northeast was absolutely blitzed by this wind from about 8 o'clock at night until 4 o'clock in the morning. Right through Northumberland, the borders, Durham, and into Yorkshire. Now, I raised this problem, which I said was going to be a problem, on the 12th of November because we don't have the resources. There wasn't the infrastructure in place. And, you know, I'm really pleased to say we didn't have snow in Northumberland, or there would have been a major loss of life. One of the problems was if this had have occurred, say between 2 o'clock on the Friday afternoon onwards, there would have been severe loss of life. The mainline train station between Newcastle and Edinburgh was closed. The A1 from Newcastle up to Berwick and beyond was closed because of the winds. Trees were coming down all over the county. Children, school children, people going back from work would have been stuck in 100-mile-an-hour winds. So it was a massive swathe of devastation, which I've been travelling around the county since Rachel was up, and there's still massive destruction. I saw yesterday roofs are leaking, slates are off. It's been absolutely devastating. And it's not a question of what happens, it's how you react. And that is the annoying thing. There wasn't any reaction. Now, I'll just point out, you know, in other countries, in third world countries, there's a reaction and we didn't get it. It's how you react to adversity. And there's two massive army camps in Northumberland, at Otterburn and at Albemarle Barracks, and down the road at Catterick and another camp in Yorkshire. Now, you know, the army should have been called out. We were blocked in literally from the Friday until Monday because trees were down. There was no electricity, there was no internet, no cooking, nothing. And yet nobody did anything in way of communication. We couldn't get in, we couldn't get out. And some people are still using generators last week. So it's been very, very difficult for a lot of people in the county.
You mentioned Rachel there, of course. You're talking about Rachel Sweeney, GB News North East reporter. Let me tell you, she's been absolutely tenacious at making sure GB News remains focused on the fallout, if you like, from Storm Arwen, particularly in your part of the country up there in Northumberland. You mentioned that there's still some families still on generators. When do we think that may change? I mean, it seems mad that here in the UK, one of the richest countries in the world, there are still people on mainland Britain, if you like, who are using generators weeks after the storm has passed.
Well, that was last week, and I know one particular case that the generator was still there, Liam, so I can't really say this week. It's all gone very quiet. We've not been getting emails in. We've not had people telling us what's going on. But you're absolutely correct. I said, you know, with Rachel, we call her the Angel of the North, Sweeney, by the way, because she has done a fantastic job in bringing these stories to GB News. But, you know, there are at least 18 generators, I was told, that Northern Power Grid had, but they weren't used. You know, farmers like Jamie Wood had 3 or 4 spare, and he was giving them out to local people. But there was elderly people trapped in their homes, couldn't get out. They had no heating, some people didn't even have water. But people couldn't heat their homes. They couldn't boil a kettle. Older people, and even in care homes, were struggling. There was no heating. People couldn't get any form of hot food. It was terrible. And, you know, as I said, the army should have been called out to go out. They've got the gear, they've got the trucks, they've got the men, they've got the personnel to go out and check. Are people okay? Elderly people probably needed prescriptions. They probably had daily care, people coming in. Nobody could get through. Trees were down all over when I say trees, I mean some of them were monster trees. And the only way you could get through, in the majority of cases, was for farmers to cut the trees up. It was a very, very difficult situation. And as I say, there probably would have been severe loss of life if this storm had hit about 5 hours earlier.
Well, Bruce, we'll stay on the case. I'm sure Rachel will remain as tenacious as ever, making sure this issue remains covered here on GB News, a national news channel, because if it matters to you, it matters to us. Bruce Jobson there, the agricultural journalist, talking from Northumberland.
Yes, well, up next, leaders across the UK said Christmas will go ahead as normal despite rising COVID cases. But despite the reassurance, is your Christmas still going ahead as normal?
Just before we debate that some more, it's time for your weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there. Well, a change is on the way for the weather across the UK over the next few days, starting today with some rain moving in from the west, potentially bringing some ice or snow to parts of Scotland. Still quite a cold feel for most of us as the cold air associated with this area of high pressure hangs on for one more day, but waiting in the wings of these weather fronts, and they'll be introducing milder air from the west and setting up a more changeable pattern into the Christmas period. So we've got rain coming in across parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, pushing up into Scotland, and as it encounters the cold air from what was a very cold night last night, chance for a few hours of freezing rain potentially across parts of southern and central Scotland, so an ice risk here for a time this afternoon. Elsewhere, though, the rain not amounting to much in the south, and it will be a cold day across eastern England as well as northern and eastern Scotland. A bit milder, though, for the far southwest. And then the rain continues to push its way further north through Wednesday evening. It's been quite a wet night across parts of Scotland, with potential for quite a bit of snow across the mountains north of the central belt. Ice risk continuing here. Elsewhere, though, rainfall not amounting to too much. Some clear spells for eastern England, and after a chilly start to the night, well, as we continue to feed in milder air, well, those temperatures will recover. So a very different start to Thursday morning compared to what we saw this morning. A lot of cloud around, perhaps some early brightness across eastern England. Otherwise, though, we're talking about a day of bands of rain coming in from the west, with some dry interludes mixed in between. The rain again across the south, not amounting to too much. The most prolific areas of rain will be parts of northern England, Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland. And again, for the mountains of Scotland, well, there could be quite a bit of snow. So they're still cold across the north, but a much milder day for the southwest. Temperatures here comfortably into double figures. And it stays quite wet across the north of the UK, particularly parts of Scotland, with some further rain and quite persistent hill snow for mountains north of the central belt, something just to bear in mind there. Elsewhere, though, some dry, clearer weather coming through later in the evening. And it's a much more unsettled picture as we move through the Christmas period, with rain for most of us, potentially a bit of snow in the north where it stays cold, but on the whole milder further south. Take care.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK, the world, and our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We're here for you. Don't forget to join our community by hitting the subscribe button.
And download the GB News app so you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Remember, just after 2:30, it's your time to give your opinion on whether your Christmas is going ahead as normal. Get in touch in the next 10 minutes with your view. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews.
Now, Christmas may be able to go ahead as normal, but there's no guarantees restrictions won't be implemented, of course, ahead of the new year. A few hours ago, the First Minister of Wales, Mark Drake, announced restrictions being put in place there from the 26th of December.
Yes.
A general requirement of a 2-metre social distancing in all premises open to the public and in workplaces, subject to that test of reasonable measures. The rule of 6 will apply to gatherings in regulated premises, such as hospitality, cinemas and theatres. All licensed premises will need to take additional measures to protect customers and staff, including table service and collecting contact details. Face coverings will be required in hospitality settings at all times apart from when seated. Large events will not be able to go ahead indoors or outdoors. The maximum number of people who can gather at an indoor event will be set at 30 and 50 people will be able to meet outdoors. There will be an exception for team sports where up to 50 spectators will be able to gather in addition to those taking part, and there will be an exception, as previously, for events involving children.
Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford speaking earlier today.
So today we're asking, is your Christmas still going ahead as normal? Let's start by getting some reactions to that news from Wales and the restrictions from Boxing Day. Gareth Wynne-Jones is a farmer in North Wales. Are you surprised by the measure Mark Drakeford is introducing?
Well, we thought there was going to be some restrictions coming in because there is a pickup in this pandemic again, and it's a bit worrying. So, with what we've got, sorry, I'm back. Somebody's trying to get hold of me. Yeah, it is a worry, but we've got to move on. It's definitely something that we all have to take care of. The numbers of people are rising. It's not going to spoil my Christmas, to be honest with you. We're still allowed to go to the pub for a pint, and as long as we're being sensible, wearing masks, the rule 6 is back, so we know what to do really. But yeah, it's strange times. It's going to be a lot of hard work for hospitality, especially the big games, the football and the rugby. Wrexham have cancelled there, not all the big rugby games for Boxing Day. It's a massive revenue for Wales to be losing. It's something that hopefully the Welsh Government will give these businesses a little bit of extra help as we come out of it.
Gareth, do you think it's a good idea that the likes of the home nations, Wales, Scotland, can do their own thing when it comes to anti-COVID restrictions? So you do now have significantly different rules between England, Wales and Scotland respectively. Do you think that's a recipe for confusion, or do you think that's democracy in action?
It's ridiculous. It's definitely ridiculous. We all be on the same playing field because, I've had friends going down to London to see concerts and, we can't do it in Wales. It's absolutely stupid. There should be the same rules for all of us, and we should be, the Westminster government should be working with the Welsh government, and they should be doing the same rules. This is not a political ball. This is people's lives and deaths, and everything should be the same. We're confusing the issue by giving different rules and regulations for different parts of our great nation. So let's pull everybody together and let's get some, clarity, and let's get everybody on the same playing field.
I mean, are you surprised that Wales has taken such a different route to other parts of the UK? I mean, does it surprise you?
No, it's not surprising, really. There's been a lot of, different rules and regulations. I think some people have tried to make it political, and I don't think that should be, what we're doing here. We should be trying to protect the public all the same. We're all the same people in the same country, near enough. And if we can't keep to the same rules and regulations for us all, there's something really wrong. Why can't Scotland, England, Wales...
Gareth Wynne-Jones there. A few comms issues out there on the hills. Gareth's a farmer in North Wales. Thanks a lot for joining us here on GB News.
Well, here in England, hospitality venues have been calling for financial support from the government, with the numbers of customers dropping over the Christmas period. Rishi Sunak announced a £1 billion support fund yesterday. Our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, is in a pub in Nottinghamshire. Will, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Well, what has this news taken? How has this been taken by businesses there?
Good afternoon. Yeah, reporting from Lamley in Nottinghamshire. It's the perfect village pub, the Robin Hood Inn, aptly named after the great rebel hero of this county. There are a lot of people that have wanted this kind of support to come in for the last 2-3 weeks, ever since we saw the first announcements of the reintroduction of masks, things like COVID passes in England, in nightclubs, in theatres, those sorts of things. The parallel conversation to all of those announcements that we've seen the Prime Minister making is, where is the money? Where is the funding? Where are things like the furlough scheme, which ended just a couple of months ago? Well, that's what the Chancellor Rishi Sunak says he is bringing out now. It's £1 billion worth of funding that's been launched as of yesterday. Just to give you a bit of an idea of what it's for, particularly targeted towards the hospitality industry, so places like this, your pubs, your bars, your restaurants, places that are significantly affected by this drop in trade that we've seen in the build-up to Christmas. 90,000 Omicron cases yesterday, considerable cases that seem to be topping any previous levels that we saw in different parts of the pandemic with different variants of COVID. So those measures, these new bits of funding, are extremely important for the people that work in this industry. We'll get on to how much it is and whether it's going to do enough for businesses in just a moment. Just to give you a bit of an idea, though, of how damaged the pub industry has been in particular. 37 fewer pints have been sold so far this Christmas. £297 million has been lost in this Christmas period. And in one weekend alone, in the last weekend just gone, there was a cancellation rate of 3 million pub visits that were gone. So it's a really considerable effect that this is having on businesses at the moment. Some of the funding is obviously going towards things like keeping these places open. It's up to £6,000 that businesses like this in the hospitality sector can claim. And then there's also statutory sick pay. So that's going for smaller businesses, 250 staff members or fewer. They can claim for 2 weeks worth of COVID-related sicknesses. And then the last one, the Cultural Recovery Fund, not exactly hospitality, but for theatres and arts venues, that's going to really support them. So that's the £1 billion. Where does it go? Is it going to work for people? Earlier today, I spoke to the landlord of the Robin Hood Inn, David Danby. He told me whether the £6,000 maximum payment is going to be enough for his business.
For Christmas, the amount that my figures are down from on 2019, because obviously we were shut last year, the figures are considerably low. So when you fill that hole with, say, up to £6,000 I can get, let's just say I get 6,000, fill that hole up with that, then also my costs as well of the staffing and etc., and you put the bills on top of that, that really reduces that down to, say, maybe £2,000, which, yeah, it's nice, but it's just not enough. It's been too long drawn out and not soon enough. We need to know now as an industry what he's going to do after going into New Year's, because obviously with that, if he is going to lock down, that is a big effect onto us, obviously with staffing and etc. What do we do? There's obviously no job retention scheme or anything going to happen at the moment, and we need to know what's going forward, because obviously it's not just about like the 2 weeks or 3 weeks going forward, it's about the months going forward. It's great that he's announced he's doing nothing before Christmas, yeah, that's fantastic, but they do need to address the future for all of us going forward, so we can plan financially to make sure our businesses are going to survive.
Well, Hollis, thanks a lot for that update from Lanley in Nottinghamshire at the aptly named Robin Hood pub. Thanks for joining us.
Well, after the break, it's all about your opinion. We're asking whether Christmas is going ahead as normal where you are. Join the debate next on Piero and Halligan.
We'll also continue our look back at some of the big news events from 2021 and the communities who've made a difference. But first, let's get the GB News headlines once more with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon, I'm Rosie Wright. Let's get you up to date. The First Minister of Wales has announced this afternoon that the country will move to COVID alert level 2 from Boxing Day. The measures include 2 metres social distancing in public and places of work, the rule of 6 in pubs, restaurants, cinemas and theatres. Face coverings will be required in hospitality settings at all times, apart from when you're seated. There's also going to be a limit on the number of people attending large events, 30 people indoors and 50 people outside. In England, the self-isolation period for fully vaccinated people who test positive for COVID-19 has been cut down from 10 to 7 days. Those infected with the virus must produce a negative lateral flow result on day 6 and day 7 of their isolation period. The Health Secretary says the move will help thousands enjoy Christmas this year with their families. The UK economy has grown at a much slower pace than first thought between July and September. The Office for National Statistics said the economy expanded by 1.1% in the third quarter of this year, compared with an initial estimate of 1.3%. Experts expect the economy to further contract in December with fears over new restrictions. A government minister in Madagascar has said he swam for 12 hours after his helicopter crashed at sea during a rescue mission. Sergei Gele, who leads the National Gendarmerie, was with a team searching the northeast coast of the country after a cargo ship illegally carrying 138 passengers sank. At least 64 people have been killed, 24 people are missing. 50 survivors were found. I'll have a full update for you at 3 o'clock.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Today on the show, we're asking, despite no new coronavirus restrictions across the UK for Christmas, is your big day going ahead as normal?
We want to know what you think about this. You can email us to share your views, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Lots of you have already been getting in touch.
Yes, Steve says 100% life has to go on. We have to learn to live with COVID. It isn't going away. No politician is stopping me from seeing my family this Christmas.
Colin got in touch to say, no, I've shelved my original plans and am now planning to see even more people.
Yes, and Judy says that's a weighted question. We had already decided not to have large gatherings or go to parties, so no change here.
Gary says, I'm not going to cancel or change my plans on the whim of a politician.
Yes, and Jason says my plans were going ahead regardless.
Mandy got in touch with us to say, we've reverted to our bubble. Not hard, better to be safe than sorry.
Yes, and Julie says, absolutely, our family is going to party.
Lots of mixed views there from our GB News viewers. Back to taking some of the look at the big news stories of the year now and the impact that they've had on communities across the UK.
Yes, well, who are the people making a mark where they live? Similar to last year, 2021 has been a year of the staycation. Rules and restrictions for foreign travel opened our eyes to some of the great British holiday destinations right on our doorstep.
Joining us now is someone who knows all about holidaying in the UK. It's Fran Drake, the owner of Michaelmarsh Manor Farm. It's a working farm with cattle and livestock. She also offers holiday lets in the countryside. Fran, has business boomed for you this year?
Yes, we had a very good summer, but of course it slowed down with the Omicron notification. Bookings have stopped at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that has been some of the challenges, because even if we have been encouraged to have a staycation, sometimes there's been restrictions to which people can't even really go on holiday or leave the house. So has it been quite mixed this year as well?
Yes, we're quite lucky in that we are self-catering, so people who can come they can come in their bubble. We've got kitchen. We're just like a home from home, so everything is available for them on site. We're having a lot of families that come from local, like Chandler's Ford, Totton. There's one family that the daughter has long COVID, so she's unable to travel too far, so she's been coming to us instead. They've come back a few times now. We can offer.
Are most of your guests families, Fran? Given that you've got cattle, other livestock, you've got chickens. I guess lots of people with kids enjoy that kind of environment because it's interesting and educational and fun for the children.
Yes, we do try to educate them when they're here. We teach them all about the cows, and they can go and see them milking. We have 5 milking robots, so they're welcome to go and see where their milk comes from. And at lambing time in April, they'll be able to see lambs being born. We offer them to feed baby lambs if they like to do that. We've got a goat that was newborn last May, which has proved such a hit with everyone. There's also chickens running around, which they like to see and hear first thing in the morning.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I mean, what about the fact that foreign travel has been disrupted? I mean, do you ever get foreign visitors to the area? Has that been a disruption due to the fact that flights and so on have been cancelled?
Yes, definitely. Last year we had somebody booked in from Netherlands for 3 weeks, but of course they had to cancel. Luckily, they have been rebooked for next year, but whether they'll still be allowed to come, we've got no idea. So, yeah. But a lot of people are just local. We have a lot of people from London, Wales, Scotland come down.
Is this a long-standing business for you, Fran, or is it something that's developed during the pandemic as more and more of us have been choosing so-called staycations, staying in the UK for our holidays?
Yeah, we've been farming now. We moved down from London nearly 40 years ago and started up the holiday business 4 years ago. And we've just expanded from there, where we've become more and more popular, and it's lovely entertaining the children and teaching them about farming. So we're at the moment converting 2 other barns to accommodate more families. So we'll be able to accommodate 25 to 30 people in the future.
And tell us more about the milking machines you've recently introduced and some of the other things that people can see if they go to the farm.
Right, so a couple of years ago, with the help of a leader grant, we purchased 5 second-hand milking robots, so the cows can go into the robots and milk themselves whenever they feel they need to, day or night. And from then, we have produced, set up a micro dairy, so we can pasteurise our own milk. And we've just gone live selling, and this is one of the bottles, so they can go to a vending machine and purchase a bottle and then use the bottle to collect their milk from the vending machine. So it stops all the carbon footprint and it's all recyclable.
I have to ask you, Fran, and this is going to make me sound like a real townie. You're there in lovely rural Hampshire. What happens on the farm early in the morning? Do you have a cock that crows and wakes everyone up?
We do, actually, and to be honest, we had some lovely guests recently, and the first thing in the morning, the mother said to me, the daughter, she just waited all night long to be woken up by this cockerel. I could not believe it. But being a townie, she just wanted to hear she called it a rooster, going off in the morning. It was lovely to talk to her about it. But I'm sure not all guests would enjoy that.
That's one wake-up call. You don't have to call the hotel reception to make sure that it happens. Fran Drake, it's been fabulous talking to you. You're the owner of the Michaelmarsh Manor Farm down there in rural Hampshire. Thanks for joining us on GB News.
Now on to a real community champion. Randir Singh has gone above and beyond for the homeless in Birmingham. He set up a mobile dentist, organised a Christmas party and a takeaway service, all for those who are sleeping rough.
His efforts haven't gone unnoticed as he was recognised with a Pride of Britain award, and congratulations to him. We're pleased to say that Randir joins us live now from Walsall. Randir, what first inspired you to start helping the homeless?
Hello there. Firstly, being a baptised Sikh, our faith, one of the main principles of Sikhism is to share with the less fortunate. So in 2013, we decided to start doing our bit by going out to the streets of our very town, Walsall, taking out hot meals, food parcels for them to take away for the next day, warm clothing, toiletry bags, blankets, sleeping bags, and the list just carries on. From there, it just expanded, and now today we're an international organisation, our main base being in Birmingham City Centre.
And how do people react when you support them? I mean, it must be such an amazing feeling. They must be so grateful. What are some of the reactions you find?
Oh, their reaction that they're overwhelmed. I mean, to be honest, we've done this over the past 9 years now. So to us, they're like a second family. Sometimes it's not just about a hot meal. Sometimes it's just a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes vulnerable people, are not sure about what they're entitled to. So they'll come over to us with their forms, with the letters, just generally everything. We're just there for them seven days a week across the UK.
I was taken when I read, Randir, that you set up a mobile dentist for some homeless people. What made you focus on dentistry?
Well, firstly, from our volunteers, we have volunteers from all walks of life. We have doctors, we have retired dentists, we have lawyers, we have barristers. People just come out and do their bit. So one of our retired dentists, he obviously comes to the street feed. People will ask him general advice for for dental issues. On the other hand, we have a couple of people that are retired doctors, so they've sort of got together and set up something where anybody living on the streets, because a lot of them are vulnerable, a lot of them lack confidence to walk into your dentist, to walk into the doctor's surgery. So we're actually bringing it to them. So the service is there for them. So anything they require, whether if it's dental issues or if it's general health issues, the professionals are there to support them.
What are some of the common causes you find in terms of why people find themselves on the streets?
It could be everything. I mean, mainly, I'd say mental health issues. People have fallen in life. We've come across professional individuals that's been very successful at one time over marriage issues or loss of job. They've just fallen in life. All sorts, and yes. Addiction is also a problem as well. There's various people with various issues. So, yeah.
And have you found during this pandemic, Randy, that there's actually been a community spirit that was there that's come to the fore? That's certainly what I found in my neighbourhood. Have you found that in Walsall and across the Midlands?
Yes, we have, because even though our organisation we mainly concentrate on street feeds, but during the COVID, especially when there's a crisis in the big superstores, us as well as other wonderful organisations from all communities got together, and people started doing food parcel deliveries especially to the elderly community that's been in isolation. Not only food parcel deliveries, but even posting letters for them. Picking up prescriptions. Buying their paper. I mean, our team members have even sort of baked cakes for them and knocked on the doors and gave them a little surprise and just to put a smile on their face to show that they're not alone, that we're with them. So that's.
Well, Randy, it's great to talk to you here on GB News. Thanks a lot for joining us. Congratulations on your Pride of Britain Award. Randy Singh there, who's the founder of the Midland Langar Siva Society and a local community worker.
Well, finally, let's go back to July. A mural of Manchester United and England footballer Marcus Rashford was vandalised after the Three Lions' loss in the Euro 2020 final.
Away from football, the United star has, of course, campaigned for free school meals for children across the UK. Following the vandalism, thousands of pounds was raised for food bank charities.
It was yet another bit of community work spearheaded by Rashford, who has spoken about his childhood in Withamshire, where his family relied on local food banks for their Christmas dinner.
Well, one food bank in Marcus Rashford's hometown of Withamshire has done some fantastic work this year. Susan Halpin's a trustee there, and she joins us now on the phone. Susan, thanks so much for joining us here on GB News. What sort of impact has Marcus Rashford's campaign had on your local community?
Well, it's certainly raised the profile of the fact that we've got a food bank in Withamshire. It's a hub with 6 little satellite hubs, each one open on a different day, so that wherever you are in Withamshire, which is a big place.
And also, how difficult a year has it been for families across Withamshire?
Well, it's been very bad, because the vast majority of people in Withamshire are employed in rather insecure work, and that's been a problem. Airport, which is the largest employer in Withamshire, has not been functioning as it has in previous years. So lots of people have been laid off, and the withdrawal of the £20 a week state benefit has hit families very hard.
That's right. The universal credit uplift of £20 that the government introduced during the pandemic was withdrawn, as you rightly say. Susan, to what extent have you seen a community spirit? Obviously, Marcus Rashford's been at the forefront, but among the grassroots, among the kind of volunteers that you've been working with, have you seen a community spirit in Wythenshawe that perhaps you hadn't seen before as a result of this pandemic?
Certainly in the wider area of Greater Manchester, a much greater willingness from not just from individuals but also from companies and from some of the from the Manchester City Football Club and various other the big organisations in Manchester, and also from schools, daycare centres, synagogues, mosques. Everybody seems to be much more aware of the existence of food banks and the enormous need for food banks, and that is in a large part due to Marcus Rashford. He's certainly done a light on problems facing far too many families.
And also, I mean, in terms of this Christmas time, does your organisation also provide support for families during this time?
We certainly do, and we've had some wonderful donations from supermarkets and food retailers and food manufacturers. We're packing up parcels this week to go to families with young children, and there were lots of goodies in, lots of things that certainly would strain the budgets of many of the people we help. So that there has been a big desire that, you know, the sweets and the chocolates and the little toys that children look forward to, so that many of those do reach our client families.
And how can local people get involved, Susan, briefly, just before we go?
Well, they can get involved. Every supermarket has a big dumper at the front door. When you're doing your shopping, buy a packet of biscuits, buy a jar of coffee, a packet of tea, long life milk, or some everyday toiletries. Then you'll use them and somebody will be very grateful.
Well, Susan, you're clearly doing fantastic work. We're most grateful to you. Susan Halpin there, the trustee of Wythenshawe Food Bank. Thanks a lot for joining us on GB News.
Yes, brilliant stuff. Well, today on the show, we are asking, despite no new coronavirus restrictions across the UK for Christmas, is your big day, or is this Christmas big day still going ahead for you as normal?
You've been emailing us throughout the show. Mark says, we've got 3 kids who are an A&E nurse, a paramedic and a prison officer. They're all working on Christmas Day. We've planned Christmas in Luton on the 27th and we'll be going ahead come what may.
Yes, and Derek says people who are whining about having their Christmas disrupted don't know how well off they are. My late father, like thousands of others, hardly saw my mother for 6 years during World War II, and many of his pals never did come home.
Thanks for all your views. You've been watching Anaya and I for the last hour here on GB News. We've really enjoyed your company. Up next is The Briefing with the GB News political editor, Darren McCaffrey.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there. Well, a change is on the way for the weather across the UK over the next few days. Starting today with some rain moving in from the west, potentially bringing some ice or snow to parts of Scotland. Still quite a cold feel for most of us as the cold air associated with this area of high pressure hangs on for one more day, but waiting in the wings are these weather fronts, and they'll be introducing milder air from the west and setting up a more changeable pattern into the Christmas period. So we've got rain coming in across parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, pushing up into Scotland, and as it encounters cold air from what was a very cold night last night, chance for a few hours of freezing rain potentially across parts of southern and central Scotland, so an ice risk here for a time this afternoon. Elsewhere, though, the rain not amounting to much in the south, and it will be a cold day across eastern England as well as northern and eastern Scotland. A bit milder, though, for the far southwest. And then the rain continues to push its way further north through Wednesday evening. It's been quite a wet night across parts of Scotland, with potential for quite a bit of snow across the mountains north of the central belt. The ice risk continuing here. Elsewhere, though, rainfall not amounting to too much. Some clear spells for eastern England, and after a chilly start to the night, well, as we continue to feed in milder air, well, those temperatures will recover. So a very different start to Thursday morning compared to what we saw this morning. A lot of cloud around, perhaps some early brightness across eastern England. Otherwise, though, we're talking about a day of bands of rain coming in from the west, with some dry interludes mixed in between. The rain again across the south, not amounting to too much. The most prolific areas of rain will be parts of northern England, Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland. And again, for the mountains of Scotland, well, there could be quite a bit of snow. So still cold across the north, but a much milder day for the southwest. Temperatures here comfortably into double figures. And it stays quite wet across the north of the UK, particularly parts of Scotland, with some further rain and quite persistent hill snow for mountains north of the central belt, something just to bear in mind there. Elsewhere, though, some dry, clearer weather coming through later in the evening. And it's a much more unsettled picture as we move through the Christmas period, with rain for most of us, potentially a bit of snow in the north where it stays cold, but on the whole milder further south. Take care.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the Briefing PM. Over the next hour, we'll be looking at the new self-isolation rules for people with COVID in England. They're going to be released sooner. A record number of boosters delivered yesterday. And in addition to that, the extension of the vaccine programme to younger kids in school. We'll be looking at all the latest when it comes to the coronavirus and this latest variant, including those new restrictions in Wales after Christmas. And we'll be looking at the impact of the Australian free trade deal for British farmers. That and so much more in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's get the news at 3 with Rosie Wright.
Good afternoon, I'm Rosie Wright. Let's get you up to date at 3 o'clock. The First Minister of Wales has announced the country will move to COVID alert level 2 from Boxing Day. The measures include 2 metres social distancing in public and places of work. The rule of 6 is being reintroduced in pubs, restaurants, cinemas and theatres. Face coverings will be required in hospitality settings at all times, apart from when seated. There's also going to be a limit on the number of people attending large events. 30 people indoors, 50 people outside.
Now, nobody wanted to see the return to alert levels and to the protections that I've announced today. But we are now entering a really serious phase of the pandemic. Wales will reopen after Christmas, but in order to do so safely, we have to do everything we can to go on protecting ourselves and taking care of others.
In England, the self-isolation period for fully vaccinated people who test positive for COVID-19 has been cut from 10 days to 7. Those infected with the virus must produce a negative lateral flow result on day 6 and day 7 of the isolation period, and then they can leave. The Health Secretary says this will help thousands of people enjoy Christmas with their families. Well, it comes as the Prime Minister says Christmas in England will go ahead as planned, but new measures could be brought in after. The Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, John Ashworth, told us businesses, though, need clarity.
Everybody is anticipating that something will happen after Christmas. Indeed, that's the briefing from the government sources to newspapers. Briefings to newspapers isn't good enough. I think we just need some clarity about what the financial package will be and what the restrictions are